Said that long enough, boss? Well, I did go away as president and came back as treasurer. I'm not sure exactly what happened. Still trying to figure it out. But no, actually, some of you know, and for the rest of you that don't, I had a kidney transplant last June, and that's why I've been out for this length of time. And this was something that I knew was coming for probably about 20 years or so. I still do, actually have a hereditary kidney condition that I inherited from my mother. One good thing about it is the only thing it affects is kidneys. So it's not it doesn't affect the rest of the body. But nonetheless, I knew as long ago as 20 years ago that the day would probably come when I would need to do something, dialysis or kidney transplant. And I knew way back then that the kidney transplant was definitely the best way to go for this kind of problem. So that's what I was aiming for. And then it actually kind of came up a little faster than I thought it was going to, and all of a sudden I was sort of at the end of the line as far as my own kidneys go, whereas my nephrologist said they were running on fumes, so I had to do something. And but I had actually gotten on the kidney transplant list. You know, you hear about the list for people that are waiting for transplants. Those are for what they call cadaveric transplants. Those are for people who die and donate their organs, but they don't have a specific recipient. So those organs go to whoever's on the top of the list, or who's ever close to the top. That's a good match. But a lot of people have what they call live donors, which is somebody who volunteers to be a donor and give you a kidney. And so, you know, I was thinking about this a long time ago, and of course, as the time got closer, I thought more and more about it. Like, well, what am I going to do? Am I going to go around and ask people? Hey, you know, you got 2 kidneys. You don't really need both of them. And I did have one friend write me a postcard and says, by the way, I only have 1 kidney. He was preempting me right off the bat. And so, but you know, I couldn't bring myself to bring that up to people. I just said, I'm not gonna go around and ask people to give me a kidney. So I just tried to time it, so I got on the list as early as I could, so that my time would come up about the time I needed it. And I didn't have the time quite right, because that's not the way it happened. But anyway, and most of my friends knew that I had this kidney problem, but they didn't know where it was, how far along things were. And I didn't really appreciate how far along things were either, but all of a sudden I realized it wasn't very far off, and I told people that, well, it's not going to be long, and I'm either going to have to do dialysis or get a kidney transplant. And people had the usual reaction you'd expect, you know, empathy and understanding and everything. One person that I know just immediately said, I want to give you a kidney. And that was actually very touching, you know, somebody just say that without even thinking about it, you know. But she said she didn't want anybody to know who she was. She wanted to remain anonymous. So then I was talking to my other friends, and I said, well, I do have somebody that wants to be a donor, but she doesn't want anybody to know who she is. But she was an anonymous donor. And she got evaluated. The donors actually get a pretty extensive evaluation, because they want to be sure that the donor isn't going to risk their own life by donating the kidney. So they go over to the donors like 3 days worth of evaluating. And if the donor has anything at all that might present a problem, then they're excluded as a donor. And this person went and got evaluated, and they saw some little things that they thought weren't good, so they said she can't be a donor. And but it was interesting, because when I started mentioning that this person had, or a person had volunteered to be a donor, also other people started volunteering. Just amazing, really. Then it was almost like a little snowball. You know? Had several people saying they were willing to be a kidney donor, which to me was incredible. And so we ended up having quite a few to choose from, but a lot of people were excluded for various reasons, like your own blood type, or maybe somebody, if you have high blood pressure, you're not going to be considered a qualified donor. So I thought one tip I could give people if they ever were in need of a kidney was to just pretend like somebody had volunteered to get a kidney and say they wanted to remain anonymous, and you probably get a bunch of other people to volunteer. But anyway, I don't mean to make too much of a little too much, because it was a remarkable thing for a person to be willing to do. Because I mean, they go through a lot too. You go under general anesthesia, you have this kidney removed, and it's not exactly, you know, for the donor, it's not a picnic. There's you know, it's pretty uncomfortable the first day or two, and it takes several weeks to really get back to feeling normal. The person that did donate my kidney was, or her kidney to me, not my kidney. And it took her about a month to really feel normal again. And I think it turned out to be a little more than she thought it would be. And I went to see her the day after the surgery. We were only a couple doors apart, and she was laying there. I said, "You're probably wondering if this was a very good idea." And anyway, she did do that, and it was many years ago. I worked on the Navajo reservation, and I was with a group of people in a small town out there. And most of the people that volunteered to donate were people that I knew from that time. And it was it was kind of interesting because, you know, we lived in this little town, and we lived on the same street, and we had the same job, and almost all our recreational activity was together, and we really became almost like family members to each other. So it's just sort of interesting. That's where it came from. But anyway, that's the story. And she's doing great, and that's good. I'm doing great too. So, thank you.